Hey guys, this is What If Spider-Man Was in Invincible Part 3. Let's dive right into it. Now, last time I left off around the time Peter would have been, new to the whole hero gig, also the Flaxman invasion and a bunch of other stuff like that, and the Guardians of the Globe dying and all the other mumbo jumbo, everything that happened in episode 2 of season 1 of Invincible, but some of the events changing a lot through Spider-Man. Also, we did leave off with Peter Parker beating Daredevil, and there will be some Spider-Man related characters that will exist in the same world and have a big impact when I eventually do cover the Invincible War and the Viltrumite invasion, doing when the Invincible show eventually gets that arc. But before that, we're gonna be focusing on Peter Parker. Now, we're gonna be focusing a lot more on Peter Parker in this continuity because, well, it's Peter's What If. So let's dive right into this fanfiction. We continue our story off. Peter waking up in a sweat, going back to the night Uncle Ben died. Him having his own memories of that night and blaming himself over and over for why he didn't do enough. He was too slow, he wasn't fast enough. Maybe his anger and his rage towards Uncle Ben led to his death and him blaming himself more than ever. Because Peter's guilt with Uncle Ben will be following him for years to come. And eventually when Peter gets to that point, he will be forgiven, but that won't happen anytime soon. So I'm really trying to, do a lot of character development for Peter. But we see that Peter gets up and is about to go out on the town, but being told by Aunt May from the kitchen, being said that you're late to school and that why are you sleeping in? Peter putting on his, school outfit, forgetting it was actually Friday instead of Saturday, thinking he had a day off, but it would be his last day of school, or at least until the week is over. So Peter getting ready and catching the bus a little bit late, swinging over there, unnoticing past people, eventually getting to school. Passing by Mark a few times, but them not knowing each other in a personal sense, only knowing them from William being Peter's cousin. So Peter would just walk past William, saying good morning, and William and Peter just having a pretty good time doing lunch. Him also meeting up with Mark doing lunchtime as well. His life or his school life going pretty much the same. We would see some bullying happening with a specific kid, this university's version of Flash Thompson. Pretty much the same bully that bullied Mark, but his name in this continuity actually being Flash Thompson. And his character would become a lot more influential and more important in the later series or later episodes to come. So we see that Flash starts to bully Peter. Peter going on to say, "Leave me alone, Flash. I'm not in the mood today." As Flash would have stopped, remembering the fact that he did, at one point, give his condolences to Peter for his uncle dying. And Flash, not wanting to be, a douchebag, him saying, "All right, Peter, I'll leave you alone today," as he would have walked off. Peter looking back at William saying that it seems like more people have cut you slack since, what happened. Peter saying, "Yeah, I guess, but that's okay. I'm starting to get over it a little bit." William saying, "It's okay if you need to talk to somebody. I'm here. I'm family." Peter saying, "Yeah, I understand. I know, William. You've been there for me when we were kids. Always been there for me. But I think I just have to deal with this by myself. I have to be there for Aunt May too." As William said, "Well, after school, me and Harry are gonna come over and we're gonna work on our science project, okay?" As them saying their goodbyes, walking their separate ways, and going to the rest of their classes. Because at a certain time, after, pretty much lunch, they'd have no periods even close to each other or in the same hallways. So Peter eventually gets done with school, about to leave school and get back home, but hearing some commotion in the city area, hearing explosions pop off and a bunch of other things happening. During this time, it would be a villain attack in the center of the city. During this time, it would be the funeral for the Guardians of the Globe. Now for this continuity, Mark would still be at the funeral alongside a couple other characters like Eve, Debbie, I can't remember her name, Olga, Red Rush's wife, and stuff like that. Those characters. The funeral would happen pretty much the same, nothing really changing too much because Peter wouldn't be there. Now, Peter would have made his way to the city, swinging in there and stopping midway as he would have heard explosions and commotion going off, seeing a group of thugs or I guess assassins or some sort of army covered dudes in some sort of weird getup shooting explosions off back to back to back. These guys having some sort of symbol on their chest, being a part of a gang in, well,
Machine
his
Head.
territory, as they would have been a part of the, well, Tombstone gang. Peter swinging down there, taking out a few of them, but getting side blitzed by a blast of energy. Peter dodging out of it very narrowly, as he would have saw the effect of the blast, it disintegrating through an entire building behind him. Peter whipping it up as hard as he can, keeping it at bay until a couple other heroes can show up that have some sort of flying or superhuman strength type powers, holding the building in place enough for Peter to whip it up and keep it stable for a few minutes or a few couple times, so some civilians can get out and get to safety. Peter having a few help from other heroes. Now Peter would have saw the building collapse as he would have put all of his strength trying to stop it, but one of the heroes telling him that all of these civilians are out. Peter looking around, but seeing that you're stupid, as he would have saw a little girl about to get crushed through the window of the building. As he would have used his webbing for a split second, letting go of the building and swinging inside of the building, grabbing the girl and running through her building, jumping out of the other side of the building through a window, getting her to safety and swinging her on the floor near Town Square. Her getting to safety and giving her back to her parents, as they would have been actually out, not being inside of the apartment at the time. As Peter would have said to keep an eye on her, swinging back into action. As pretty much we see Peter starting to get back in mojo, as he would have saw a bunch of heroes starting to get blasted by these energy projectiles. As he would have started to swing and dodge, being having a lot more reaction time than probably all the heroes that were even here, since they were just side characters. As Peter would have started to easily weave and maneuver out of these blast attacks, as he would have dodged and weaved, grabbing one of the, well, pretty much energy attacks or blasters out of the thug's hand, kicking him back into a nearby car and knocking him out cold. Peter using the web or, well, the energy blaster or gun, shooting it at a few other pretty much thugs, seeing that the blaster had a stun mode. It somehow disturbing their, well, nervous system, kind of like the Molar Twins gun. But in this continuity, the Molar Twins blaster would have been actually produced by Oscorp. Peter looking at the logo, as eventually the, well, GDA would have shown up. Peter looking at the blaster and saying, "What the hell?" As Peter would have just swung off, the GDA trying to stop him for some questioning, but Peter just swinging back to the city. Eventually, Peter would have gotten back home, as Aunt May would have asked him, "Are you there?" Peter saying no, as Aunt May would have said, We have meatloaf today for dinner." Peter going down into the kitchen and looking at this empty seat left by Uncle Ben. Peter would have been looking at the seat, as Aunt May would have told him that it's okay, that at least we have each other, and we want us to depend on each other. Peter, I don't want ever think or ever want you not to tell me anything. I'm always here for you no matter what. But more than ever, as Peter and Aunt May would have shown and had a moment of, well, silence and them hugging each other and crying in each other's arms. Because if I'm being honest with you, Uncle Ben's death is going to have a pretty big effect on Peter, more than ever. Now, Peter and Aunt May would have gone to sleep that night, but the next day, something would have happened. Now, during the whole event, what would happen, because Peter would have had that whole thing with pretty much William and Harry coming over, something would have really happened because they met the next day. The next day would have come as they would have actually a field trip, as Peter, William, and Harry would have been going on a field trip near Washington. As Peter would have been able to get slid by it, as Harry would have actually offered to pay for his admission fee for the, field trip, because, he knows the predicament him and Aunt May are in right now. As Peter, Harry, and William go in. Now, I don't think I introduced Harry in part 1 or part 2, but Harry has been Peter's friend for pretext for about since middle school, and pretty much became friends with William as well, as they're kind of a trio of sorts. Harry being more of Spider-Man 1 Harry's personality and demeanor with Tobey Maguire. Having more of a nerdy outlook, but still being on the football team and basketball team, and pretty much being kind of a semi-jock. Not being a dumb idiot blockhead, but not really being too big on the science mumbo jumbo. And we see that Peter, Harry, and William go on the field trip as they're having a pretty good blast, them going to build the building in Washington, as eventually they would have heard commotion. As they would start to get evacuated hearing seismic quakes and blasts going off. Peter looking up into the sky and seeing two people in suits, well, fly off. Peter noticing these guys from earlier and, well, yesterday as well. Doing the whole events with Peter's, well, pretty much swinging around and stopping the bad guys from earlier with Oscorp Tech, he would actually swung by, well, the Guardians of the Globe tryouts. We would see that Peter would have been walking in there and not there for tryouts. Him about to come clean, because personally, he doesn't think he's good enough to be part of the Globe. Peter thinks to himself that he isn't the best he could be. With the death of Uncle Ben and him not being the best he could be, not being there for him and not saving his life, that'll be the biggest toll on him. Peter thinking that the best thing he can do right now is to grow and excel. To focus on being more of the friendly neighborhood, well, hero than just being some sort of hero on a team of titans. He doesn't want to take a teammate or take the spot of a hero that actually deserves it. Peter's very new to the game, and he might be a good candidate as Robot did actually want Cecil, especially like personally, wanted Cecil to invite him and have him as a candidate. But Peter declined the offer and having a conversation with Robot, telling him that he thinks he isn't good enough. Robot saying, "What do you mean? You're incredibly smart, and you're very bright. You have a lot of potential. What makes you think that?" Peter's saying that in his past he wasn't good enough, he wasn't fast enough to save somebody, someone important to him. Until he thinks he could, until he grows from that, he doesn't think it's the best thing for him to join a team of superheroes, and more him wanting to focus on himself and become a better hero and try to figure out who he is as a person. As Robot claims or says that that's pretty noble, and I respect you. I respect that. As them handshaking, as Peter would have been watching the tryouts occur. Now the same thing would have happened. Eve, Rex, Duplicate, Shrink Ray, all the tryouts would have gone exactly the same. Peter having some small talk with Mark, getting to know Mark a little bit better, as them being more acquainted. As eventually they would be interrupted by the whole shenanigans happening when, well, Rex got his whole, the whole dingling joke, and the whole him trying to clown on Monster Girl. Monster Girl would have hulked out on him, pretty much punching him through a window into the train site and starting to pummel this man to death, or just straight up blast his just straight up bust his balls. Like he's being beat the shit up right now. As we would see that Peter would have actually jumped in instead of Mark. Peter swinging in and telling her to stop as she would have kicked him back or pushed him back, saying, "Get out of my face, blue boy." Peter swinging back, using his webs as a ricochet, swinging right back towards Monster Girl at about 10% strength, kicking her back, causing some blood to draw, and having her be transformed. She would have still had to apologize, or would have apologized, saying that the whole little girl thing just tweaks me off and kind of sets me off. Sorry about the whole junk thing. I'm sure your junk is great, which is kind of crazy, but nonetheless. So we see that Rex just says, "Yeah, it's okay." As he would have coughed up blood, saying, "You punch really hard." As that whole conversation will go the same, I'm kind of scoffing at Peter walking off. Because him and Peter will have a very rocky relationship. And yeah, I'm just going to keep it at that. So Peter and Rex would have had their separate things. And Rex saying, "You're an asshole," under his voice, walking away from Peter. As Peter would have just scoffed, saying, "Dude, I just saved your life." As Rex, "I didn't need your help. I had that in the bag." As he would have chuckled, or Peter would have chuckled under the mask, as he would have walked off. Now, the whole tryouts would have happened somewhat the same, as the Guardians of the Globe would have been teamed up and, well, said. And I'm going to be honest with you, the Guardians of the Globe is such a sorry team. Oh my goodness, these guys are sorry. We got Off-Brand Gambit, which I honestly, Rex is the best side character in Invincible, don't debate me. But he is a sorry character when it comes to strength. Now, he is pretty OP, he is that. He had to, self-initiate himself just to take down a weaker version of Mark, but still, that's crazy, yo. But yeah, we got off-brand Hulk, we got off-brand Iron Man, we got a powerless nobody in a super suit. Who else? We got off-brand Ant-Man. Like, bro, what is this team? Y'all a bunch of chumps, bro. And the crazy thing, they all got dropped, or most of them got dropped. Like, the more upstanding members, like, Duplicate, Immortal, Darkwing, all those other guys got absolutely squad wiped by one Mark Grayson, and the rest of the team got squad wiped by another Mark Grayson. These guys are trash. I'm sorry, they're trash. After me going on a rant about how trash this team is, we're gonna be focusing more on Peter because this is his what if, and nothing in Peter's whole like thing just yet has affected Mark enough for him to change the course of the story. So Peter's story is going the same. Now we can switch back to present with Peter watching Mark and Eve fly off towards what was happening with, well, Seismic or Dr. Seismic. Dr. Seismic causing a huge calamity and trying to destroy the Mount Rushmore. Him saying that it was a political device and all this other bull and mumbo jumbo, which he might be on something. He might be on something, but still, as he starts to throw jokes and basically saying that the government is corrupt and look at what they're making you wear, Adam Eve, is her saying I made this suit myself. Yeah, it shows. But I'm not playing. Her suit is fire though. We see that Peter swings into action, putting on his suit, still having that hillbilly homecoming suit on, or homemade suit on, swinging over and starting to get to active business. Him seeing Dr. Seismic, Mark, and Eve go toe to toe, and Eve trying to fight against Dr. Seismic, and Mark trying to save civilians. But Mark would have been told by Peter that Peter's gonna go after the civilians, as Mark and Eve should focus on Dr. Seismic and try to keep the damage to a minimum. As Mark and Peter would have nodded to each other, as Mark would have flown off, as Peter would have swung into action, webbing up a bunch of civilians, throwing them out the way, pulling them out of the way of collapsing rubble, rocks falling down, and even tremors being opened underneath them. Peter swinging and coming with a swiftness. I mean, Peter is really on his A-time, his A-team timing, bro. He's really going crazy. Him swinging and jogging and pretty much dashing across the tremors that were being made by Dr. Seismic, Mark, and Eve's fight. Eventually, he would have actually cut down a lot on the fatalities that did happen in original canon. Nobody actually getting hurt at all, except for a group of family or a family being fallen into a tremor. Mark would have saw this, but Peter swinging into action, grabbing one of the family members and webbing up the mom and dad, but the daughter falling down. Peter swinging the mom and dad up, grabbing both of them and chucking them into the group of people, having other people break their fall, and none of them being hurt, but Peter about to jump into the tremor to try to grab the girl, but Mark flying in there past him, while Peter grabbing Peter by the leg before Peter uses his webs to grab the girl and web her back up to his arms. Them helping each other and Mark flying Peter back to safety with the other civilians. After Dr. Seismic and Eve would have basically had to fight, as tremors would have opened up more and more, as Peter would have told Mark to finish what he was doing, as Mark would have jumped in, both of them finishing the job against Dr. Seismic, and, well, Dr. Seismic actually getting taken out by his own device, him supposedly dying. Now, Peter would have been actually praised by the civilians, as all of them would have actually, some of them would have asked, like, how is this weapon going to come off? Him saying it's going to dissolve in like a couple hours, maybe 24 hours, something like that, as them kind of being disgusted, but still praising him for saving their lives and going on to ask for pictures, autographs, and a bunch of other stuff. As Peter would have said, thank you, as one of the civilians would have said, or the little girl saying that you're my hero, as Peter would have felt, well, happy, as he would have said that it's just a day's work, and that why wouldn't I want to save such a cute girl like you? Him hitting her on the head and saying and telling everybody to be safe, and that eventually medics and ambulance would show up. Peter swinging off, but one of the guys telling him before he swings off that you should change your suit because you kind of look like a hobo. Peter chuckling, saying, thank you, as he would have swung off, as Peter would have started to look at the suit, saying maybe he should upgrade, considering that his first suit was kind of a hillbilly-like and showed a lot of skin, and now this suit gets a little bit better, but it's still just cut up sweat clothes that he got off eBay. So Peter swings off and tries to figure out what his new suit should be like. It should keep the same core colors he used earlier, but should kind of keep the same aesthetic. He doesn't know just yet what his new suit should be like though, because he wants to be iconic. Peter swinging to suit, basically Peter swinging and eventually meeting up with Harry, and William. William and Harry kind of being confused on where Peter was, but Peter just telling them that he was in the bathroom the whole time. William saying, "Are you like backed up or something? Like, are you okay? You had to
Oh,
tell me
hell
some
no, man.
juice or something." Like, I don't know. As they would have started to chuckle at each other, as they would have started to have a little friendly banter, and eventually them heading back to Peter's house after the field trip would have been closed. But basically, we get switched to Peter at his house with Harry and William. As they would have been talking, chilling, as eventually the days would have passed, or not the days, but the hours would have passed, as they would have heard a knock at the door. It being, well, Norman. Norman Osborn showing up here to pick up Harry. As this version of Osborn, I was gonna originally do like Ultimate Spider-Man Osborn, him being like an asshole of a dad, and him not looking at Peter as a son at all, and just seeing him as some sort of kin that he had, and all this other mumbo jumbo. But him seeing Harry as, well, a son, but not being super proud of it. So I'm gonna have him be like a mixture of, I think, the animated series Harry Osborn or Norman Osborn, but a big emphasis on him being kind of a version of Osborn from the Spider-Man 1 movie. So kind of like a medium in between with a split personality. So we see how Peter and Osborn kind of show some words, as Harry would have said that I'm going to be coming back later, but we made a lot of progress on the, thing, right? As Peter would have said, yeah, definitely. As him going to his limousine that was parked in front of the Parker's resident, passing by his dad, as his dad would have said, you go on, he's going to talk to Peter for a little bit. William being in the back, pretty much talking to Aunt May, as we see that Peter and, well, Osborn would have been talking. Peter talking to Osborn and them going back and forth, as Peter would have been told by Osborn that you're very gifted, and that me and Harry been thinking about this. As Harry is kind of, excited when he hears this from the, limousine, as Peter is told by Harry that we considered maybe giving you a internship at Osborn, or at, Oscorp. As him being excited, saying, wait, really? Really? I've been looking for a summer job, but an internship at Oscorp?" As him saying, yes. I know you're very excited about this, or you should be, as it would be a very good experience, and it would also put a pretty big penny and a pretty good looking resume on your skill tree. As him chuckling, but saying that you've been good friends with my son for many years now, and, well, I know your folks. I know Aunt May, and I know the type of person you are, the type of kid you are, Peter. And you're a very bright kid, and you've been a very good influence on Harry. So I wanted to give you this. And saying that you could join maybe after high school, maybe even join the college we own. As actually, Oscorp would have had cahoots with the college upstate, or the upstate college that, well, Invincible or Mark would have gone to later on in, like I say, I think season 2. So yeah, we see that Peter is low key kind of excited by this and walking back. But soon later than he knows, Peter will eventually find himself kind of finding some very strange and very suspicious things happening in Oscorp. And we're going to explain more of that in part 4 to part 5. Now, we continue our story off with Peter going to sleep that night after William would have left, them saying their goodbyes, as we see that Peter would have been getting up and getting ready to go to sleep. Him hearing some commotion and hearing something on the radio later that night, as he would have been closing up his, basement, because he would have had all his lab stuff in the basement. But him stopping when he heard a commotion happening in the city, as it would have been some sort of talk of some guy with electric powers. Peter putting on his suit and swinging into action. Peter swinging and swinging and swinging, as he would have been swinging past the mirror, kind of thinking back to another thing that happened when he was doing his whole, science project with Harry. Harry's starting to talk about the spider, or the new spider hero, saying he's kind of cool, but his suit looks ass. So Peter kind of wanting to change that, but not just yet, since he didn't have enough time, and he wanted to save the day, because it's immediate danger right now. Peter swinging into action, as it would have landed on near a pitch or a building top, looking over, hearing lightning strike. Electricity crackle, and hearing buildings getting pretty much blacked out, and the city in darkness. As he would have saw a bright light in the middle of town square yet again, as he would have saw a man in a bright yellow and green outfit, saying, "Who's going to stop me?" striking more lightning and looking at Peter, then making eye contact. And I'm gonna leave it up here, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.